It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
And Mr. James Corbett, CorbettReport.com. We got some things to be relatively concerned about. We're going to go over, it's into 25. This will be the last show that James and I do before the end of the year. And then, of course, we'll do our predictions for 26. But, you know, having, there was, last week I was at my daughter's and it was, not going well, from the truck and outside and everything. But we really said that having that distraction, we need to do the show from the studio and get down to what happened in 25 and we'll carry on into 26. Today, silver broke 70 and blazed right by it, went up a couple of dollars. I don't know what it is now. It's just, as I was doing it, it kept going up. It was just stupid. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the headlines that just a few days ago, they're continued. It's just one day was kind of representative of the entire year. And, one thing is I wanted to, get your opinion on this to make sure, because I don't think it made the list. But it was Thomas Massey coming out. Yeah, you want to do this Venezuela oil tanker thing? Fine. Letters of marque. Just go, put out bounty. I mean, what's your goal here? What do you say you're doing here? So, letters of marque. Talk about that a little bit. What you know, the history, and if you know anything of what he was doing and why we don't do it. Ron Paul suggested, you got Osama bin Forgotten. You want to go give letters of marque? No, we don't like that. That doesn't work. And tell us what that's about and what's going on, would you please?
First of all, Ernie, ho, 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 and Merry Christmas. It is Christmas Eve day here in Japan, so, I'm already on holiday mode in my heart. And so I am not going to talk doom and gloom today and be sad and crusty. I'm going to see the positive silver lining in every single story. Awesome. So, that being said, I will attempt to answer your letter remark question, but before that, tell me about silver. Because, I could give my sort of overview of why I would imagine silver is going up right now. But what do you know specifically about the markets? Why is it going up at this moment?
I don't know, because it had to at this moment 3 years ago. I mean, it's just...
Well, that's it, right? It should have been this way for a long time, but now it is. So why?
Well, this is, all right, here, I'll show you. This is the story that I put up. Silver over 226 today. Mm-hmm. And that was 71.24, blew by 70. A friend of mine, wealthy guy, I go, well, 70, you called it. You made it before the end of the year. And he goes, you called it too. And I go, no, I'm saying 300 and all the crap that goes with that. I'm just, woohoo, it's 300 and we're all in a death spiral of, whatever. So let's see, what's it at now? It is 71.40. Holy crap. And then gold is almost 4,500, 4,487 or something. Yeah. The reason is, this is one thing, if you do the least amount of research, what you'll find out is that in industry, silver, regardless of the traits, you go to your favorite AI search engine, whatever, and you say, okay, what are the traits that silver has that gold doesn't, regardless of price? I don't even want to look at the price. Just tell me what it does. It conducts heat a lot more. It has a higher electrical conductivity. It doesn't do a bunch of stuff, and it does a bunch of stuff. So it is very sought after in industry. We have a lot more electric, batteries, solar panels, all that, and it is sucking it dry. Well, we had enough surplus, quite a bit, that they could kind of finagle it and manipulate it into, 140, 200 to 1, whatever, some ridiculous amount, where it's normally about 15 to 1. The reason it's 15 to 1 is because that is its ratio in the Earth's crust. So as you mine different stuff and everything, you get about 15 to 1 more silver than gold. But the demand for it was much greater for a long time. And silver is not just like you see it in the ground very often. It's usually mined along with other metals, lead, copper, whatever. Like here in Arizona, we get a lot of silver and gold, mostly because they're going after copper. So what happens is you have this stockpile, but it doesn't just like ramp up. You open up another. I mean, it's one of those from economic activity for a lot of other metals too. So silver is going to get stupid. I knew that it was going to get stupid because it was going to run out and be more rare on hand than gold. Above the ground there for sale to use, silver is going to be less than gold. Well, guess what freaking happens then, okay? Well, this is something that we've known. It's just kind of been manipulated and papered over, and Goldman Sachs front running of kind of something, JP of we kind of sort of almost had it here, and just manipulation. So that's coming down to where America's not so bad now, because you can still go to the retail and get some and paying a premium, but a lot of people are selling it. So that's where they got kind of a glut. But around the world, they're running out. There's jet aircraft that are getting silver from America and going London, Shanghai, something. This is why it's shooting, and it's just beginning, in my opinion. And it's why I've been screaming silver forever, and just keep stacking. So, but now they're going, woohoo, Ernie, you're going to, what? Well, I go, I mean, you guys don't get it. When silver gets stupid, things are going to get stupid. Just saying. So that's my opinion.
Well, I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that in the new year because, hey, if there's one thing that has been the constant throughout my life anyway, it's that whenever precious metals start to get stupid, they get stupidly tamped down in some way or another through some manipulation or other, through some paper promise scheme or other. So
until they can't.
Until they can't, right? Well, true.
How long,
I'm still holding my breath on that.
I'm like, why, Dave? Because they can. Until they can't. And I'm thinking they're getting
refresh my memory. It was about, 13 years ago with Max Kaiser and the silver bullet thing and all that, right?
What, with us or him?
Well, with everyone. It was a big thing at the time.
We were doing silver dime cards,
right.
And right after the Revolution, in 09 and 10, we did silver dime cards. And it was a card that had a little hole in it that you put in a dime and laminated it and promoting all kinds of stuff, businesses, concept. Really what we were doing was training people on silver because we knew this was coming. And this was, 15 years ago. And but then crypto came on, and that kind of sucked the air out of that. So we were kind of doing them in parallel. Well, I would price my Bitcoin and how many ounces of silver I could get with it. That's how I did it. But the silver on the back of the card, it had what that tenth of a dollar is worth at whatever the spot price was, 20, 30, 40. We went up as high as 40. We were pleased by that. Well, it's a dollar is defined, 1780, whatever the Coin Act that defined a dollar is 0.77 ounces of silver. It's not a troy ounce. So if you get a, American, or a Morgan dollar, it's only 3/4 of a ounce, and people get ripped off if you don't know this, which they didn't. So a tenth of that dollar, which is 0.77, is 0.07, which is a silver dime. So it's not a tenth of an ounce; it's a tenth of a dollar, okay, which is 0.77 of an ounce.
Right.
So that you multiply 0.0715 or something, because of the wear a little bit of a used junk silver or silver dime from 64 and before, and you multiply that out, and that gives you the value. And right now it's probably, I'll do it here in a minute, but it's probably over $5, for a dime. So when they say a dime a dozen or a dime for a gallon of gas, they're talking silver dime. That's what they mean, is a silver dime's worth. So that is just so simple for us to see what was coming, especially when the industry had it. They had a lot of extra silver during the Manhattan Project, and they had like big giant blocks of it, big, like, 3-foot square kind of stuff all over the place they were using for the Manhattan Project. So silver's been around. We kind of accumulated once it kind of got out of money, but once it starts coming back in to being money, and people are starting to see it as money, and that this fiat money thing is BS, and the digital stable coin to $1 silver's going to get stupid. Stupid. What does that mean? I have no freaking idea, but stupid. So I'm just right now at the price of what gold is now at 4,500, 15. I think it's something like $290 or something like that. I mean, it's going to get stupid. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. I got my eye on it. All right. As for letters of marque and reprisal, I do not know much more about the history than what you'd find on Wikipedia. It goes back to, 14th century England, at least in the English language. King Edward III issued the first letters of marque and reprisal for, and I am reading Wikipedia here, quote, a license granted by a sovereign to a subject authorizing him to make reprisals on the subjects of a hostile state for injuries alleged to have been done to him by the enemy's army. So it's essentially hiring privateers or corsairs to primarily navally attack and seize
bounty hunters,
enemy ships, right? So these are the real pirates of yore, who were the ones that were licensed by the government thugs to do their work for them,
and do it a lot cheaper.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But they're going to do it.
Well, yeah. So you're talking about so you're saying Rand Paul was talking about this in the Venezuela context?
It was Massey.
Oh, Massey, sorry. Yeah.
And I think Rand has brought it up before, and sure as heck Ron Paul did during Iraq.
Right.
And for Massey, coming back with it. And Trump never misses an opportunity to say how much he hates, Massey, scumbag, being my bitch, kind of thing. So I'm like, wow. Yeah.
Well, okay, that is funny. That is interesting. But in a way, I mean, when you think about it, the modern version of this is what we saw with the what did they call it? They didn't call it the Bay of Pigs. It was the Bay of
Tonkin Gulf.
The Bay of Piglets, or whatever they called it.
For what? For which war?
So Venezuela, a few years ago, there was that guy that went in and he was like, "Oh, I'm part of some operation, and it's going to be a big. We're going to overthrow the Venezuelan government." And he was caught immediately, and immediately confessed everything. He thought he was part of some big CIA op or something, but it turned out to be absolutely nothing. I think that's the modern version of it. Some version of Black Ops where there may or may not be anything behind it. I mean, Bay of Pigs was just the first of many, many such fiascos in the modern era, where you hire up these gangs to do your dirty work for you in various places. I guess it would at least be more honest than what they're doing right now, but I don't think it's necessarily a better thing.
It would be effective when you have a new country that doesn't have a big Navy, Army, whatever.
Well, that's it, right? Yeah. If you don't have a military, then this would be the way to do it in a way that would be, I don't know, not exactly voluntarious, but at least it would be, we don't have a standing army, so we have to just hire people, and if they'll do it, then they'll do it, kind of thing, which, it would be a more honest way of doing it, anyway.
I'm glad that it came up, because one, it educates people of what's available.
Yeah.
And bounty hunters in the West and so on, I mean, they didn't have enough law enforcement to go around doing whatever. But, and they still do it now. But I'm glad that the discussion is happening, because what they're doing, we have to do this because we have to do it because, fentanyl, weapons of mass, something, and whatever, and we don't like them and they're a different color and religion. I mean, whatever excuse they come up with. But you go, okay, well, it's effective and cheaper if you do it this way. What makes you think we want to be effective and cheaper?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I like the discussion is because it's such horseshit. They go, $2 trillion, do the rack thing, low count. And they, for, I don't know, $10 million, his grandmother would take him out. I mean, it's just stupid. They're not telling us the truth. So
if only we could kill 1 million Iraqis more cheaply and, in a more efficient manner. It's just such a waste of money. That's the problem here.
We just give them a Kool-Aid and say we'll pay off their family if they just drink it. I mean,
God.
Can you? It's go. Hell, that's what they're doing in Canada.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Drink the Kool-Aid. All right, let's just go ahead and go through these because I want to make sure we get. We'll just hit through them. Now, pay attention. Northcom general says he's willing to authorize attacks on U.S. soil. Now, is there a time or a necessity or any circumstance that you would think that there would be any justification, or if there is, whatever you say they're going to use as the next one to do it anyway, for the military to come in to the country? I mean, they wouldn't do that. Well, okay, they did Waco. Well, they wouldn't do that. Okay, they did. I mean, it's...
They were using the military to spy on the Fed protesters in 2012, so yeah. And no, we know that they do this.
So authorize attacks on U.S. soil. Is that something you think is even the possibility? What has to happen, which means they'll do it, so I'm afraid to even ask you.
Well, the only interesting thing about this is that we are hearing about it in headlines, which means that at some level, this is an information operation aimed at you and me and the general public. And what is the level that's being played here? Because let's face it, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. They don't have to announce it first. We don't need some Northcom general to approve it in public view beforehand. It'll happen.
The beachhead.
Yeah. So why are we hearing about it is really the question. And obviously there is some sort of prepping of the public or some whatever it is for whatever next operation they're at least keeping on the table, if not.
Now that's what these stories kind of lead up to. Now keep this in mind. Northcom, which is North America, I guess, in charge of North America or something. Northcom out of Florida, I think it is. General says, I'm willing to authorize attacks on U.S. soil. Really? Now, why would we have something like that? Well, let's see what is coming up. Now, here's Massey doing on the Epstein files, Transparency Act and kind of release and do and so on. All this Epstein releasing and so on, it keeps coming out a little bit at a time, dribs and drabs, and Democrats blame Republicans, and I don't freaking care. They're bad. And this is one thing that's coming up. I want to hear what you think about the release of the files and then get into what's really going on. The pedophile stuff, as bad as it is just a blackmail thing to get what they want, but to get what did they want? Just diddle little girls? I mean, the boys, what was it they really wanted? It was a banking, finance, dollar kind of whatever thing that Mike Benz is, unveiling. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, obviously, as, Whitney Webb wrote about in her 2-volume book, it's about blackmail and it's about financial operations that go well beyond, the salacious stuff that makes the headlines. So, yeah, and the interesting part of it is, of course, everyone focuses on the politicians. It's all about Clinton or it's all about Trump. Whereas, what about Just Staley? What about these people connected with, J.P. Morgan and the banking empire and Les Wexner and the financial side of what was going on and the real estate side of what was going on, etc. Clearly, there's a much, much bigger story that's going to be covered up by the salacious headlines about politicians and Bill Gates and who have you.
If they had the option to do a story on these connections, banking and laundering and corruption and statecraft of blah, 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 or they were a pedophile and they got a little video of them diddling little girls kind of thing, which one would you think they would prefer come out?
What was the first option again? Sorry.
No, that, they part of a banking thing that they were laundering money. It's amazing to me how they're going, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I'm just a pedophile.
Yeah, right.
You see my point? They're kind of hide. They're willing to put all this
I don't think
stuff
so,
up.
though. I still think most politicians would choose option number one if they had to choose one. Here's the question. Remember Larry Summers? Like, he was all in the news a couple weeks ago, and now you don't hear anything about what happened to Larry Summers. But anyway, yeah, no, there's a lot of people that are there's a lot of people that are gonna face some consequence for this, but they're the people that are going to be thrown under the bus. For me, it's like the 2008 financial collapse. I mean, there were big financial institutions that went under. There was a lot of people that got thrown under the bus at the time, but J.P. Morgan and the other big boys did just fine, right?
Well, Larry Summers is a perfect example of what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
God knows how much he's derivative guy, weapons of mass, destruction and financial, doing kind of moving the money from here to there, and we're going to rob America, and we got filthy, stinking trillions of dollars rich. I'm just a pedophile. That's a perfect example.
Well, that was the thing that derailed his career, seemingly. Right, because he was head of Harvard. He was doing business deals. He was fine until.
I don't think he's going to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to jail. You're probably right about that.
So that's I'm glad you brought that up. That's kind of exactly the point I'm making. They would rather I'm just he disappeared and went in the jungle in some Caribbean Dr. Evil Island because we caught video of him being a pedophile. I'm not sure these guys give a crap what people. They just do what they do. But what they don't want to
as long as they don't get thrown in jail, what does it matter? Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, and the money. This is all centered around whatever. I have no idea. But we got Max Blumenthal does Israel. It's always Israel, and it's so tried and true. Boom. Video not available. I'm telling you. This has just been it's starting up again.
What channel was that from?
I don't know. Let's take a looky-see and see what's up.
I don't think it's going to tell you.
That's YouTube.
Yeah, but I mean, what channel? If you go back, it said on your subhead there.
All right, let me see if I can.
Sarah Love Crochet.
Sarah Love Crochet. I don't know. Maybe they don't like her.
So I guess that wasn't Max Blumenthal's own post then. Because I was wondering if his channel got taken down.
Well, a lot of times they don't take down the channel. They just take down the video.
Yeah.
And you get a strike. Yeah. They slap your wrist.
But that one said the channel associated with this video has been taken down or whatever.
Well, maybe she doesn't have enough weight as Max does.
Right.
AI news is altering your views.
Yep.
So
very good video, by the way. I hope everyone out there who's listening to us takes a look at it.
I got it up for me to watch. I haven't seen it yet. Tell us about
it. Basically, Dan it's not going to be news to you per se, but it is. He just goes through and talks about the way that the algorithm is determining more and more, not just what you're, not just how to think. They're not just telling you how to think. They're telling you what to think about and directing you in certain directions. And he goes through it in point by point style. It's quite well
we
done.
saw this in, I think it was 2009 after the Levolution, and Facebook created this. They were feeding you your timeline, what they wanted. Yeah. And once they started doing that, and here we go. This is, we're not idiots.
Yeah.
The, let's see. The crisis of disability in America. This is entitlements. This kind of thing is you get more what you subsidize, less of what you punish. What are they doing? They're subsidizing and rewarding disability. Disability, dependence, sickness, infirmary. I mean, you're going to get more because that's where the money is. And this is what's happening in Minnesota with the Somali group there. They figured it out, man. We got paperwork we can fill out and get some money. So, but this has a moral decay on it too.
Yep.
And that's really the damage. It's not just corrupt people, getting money. It's making people corrupt. What's your philosophical take on that?
No, I think that's right. I think that it's the hardest thing for people, for most people to get their head around, because of course everyone wants to take care of the poor and the infirm and the indigent and people who are disabled and people who can't fend for themselves, of course, right? But when it becomes a government program that is baked into the cake, as you say, it not only incentivizes whatever type of behavior that is being essentially rewarded, by such a program, it also puts people in the mindset that the government will take care of it, rather than the mindset that existed for, well, all of human history before the last 100 years or so, where it was mutual aid, essentially. And for hundreds of years, it was literally mutual aid societies. And most people today will be like, well, what even is that? Because it has been so thoroughly drummed out of us that people don't even know that such things existed. That, yeah, people took care of each other before there was government, if you can imagine that.
Well, this is at some point in the aging process, we all become disabled. And then your wards of the state, and then it's death panel, and, Canada's got a MAID program, take the Kool-Aid. It's just so collective. Anything does not work, and there's so many reasons.
Yeah, but that's because, it's about the breakdown of the family to replace it with the broader family. Your state will take care of you. It's your mummy government.
Uncle Sam, he's your favorite.
Yeah.
The Big Bubba. Pan American Silver Corp is, I just always kept track of this for decades because it's a mining company. It's a large Western Hemisphere, and I'm sure there are probably other places. But I think from Canada to Mexico, they're all over the place. So I just always kept a look at this, and it was ridiculously low. It was in the $19, and it kind of hung around 20-something for a long time. Then finally it started having its breakout. And the mining stocks, how much do you know about, mining and it being representative of price?
Yeah, very little. Not enough to comment on.
And media, I always thought it was, the mining stocks was kind of a prelude to what's going on now. And that's kind of the other way around. It's just manipulation, and I'm not smart enough to know, so I just screamed silver stack because I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
How? I don't know. Why? I don't know. It's just coming because it's systemic. The other thing here, what we see in this one, explore the Trump family empire, 268 pieces in a new deal today. It's all of this feed of the money, of the influence of we got a crypto, we got a thing, and we're benefiting from the thing. And I don't know how open that, Pelosi is just insider trading. I don't know what the hell you call this. If you're invested in the future and you got contacts, it's kind of like Pelosi and Biden and Hunter all rolled into one.
Yeah, this is the thing. So Biden, Trump, the Clintons, whatever, the Obamas have their grift. They're all doing this because it's like whack-a-mole. Like you could blame it all on the Trump family, or you could blame it all on the Biden family, or you could blame it all on the Clinton family. But it's the process itself. It's the seat of power that they're using to broker their deals and, use their leverage and their connections to benefit their family. It's not the families themselves. It's the system, which is fundamentally broken. I don't even want to say broken because it was never meant to function in the way that we're told it was meant to function. It is an oligarchy. And if you happen to sit, at a privileged seat at that table of oligarchs, your family's going to do well. So, obviously, I think it's important that someone is investigating these types of things. But I think we have to keep our eye on the bigger prize as well, which is, no, this system is corrupt from top to bottom. That's the way it's supposed to be.
It's not broken. It's fixed, And the fix is in. This is, it says here, Trump Media, which is, I guess, Trump, True Social and all this other stuff that he's whatever. Trump Media and Technology now, DJT, which stands Donald J. Trump, agreed to merge with an Alphabet-backed fusion energy company. Alphabet, that's Google. And in a merger valued at $6 billion, seeking to capitalize on the artificial intelligence booms, growing power requirements. And then it goes on a bunch of other things like that. Yep. Well, of course, you have a Trump company's empire, kid, whatever, merged in with AI, power, electrical fusion. I'm not feeling good about this. There's that. It's just so typical. But when you look at Obama and they go, well, they're picking winners and losers. They're using Solyndra or whatever, and they put $1 gazillion into this, and it didn't work. Well, they were just kind of gleaning the money off of it, and they're thinking short term and short money. What I think Trump is doing in the Trump empire, oh, no, we're not just using it as an excuse to rip it off and keep the Ukraine war going so we can backdoor, a little on the side. We're going to make a business out of it and be really stinking filthy rich.
Yeah.
They're going to make sure it works and make some money. You guys are so naive and so much amateurs. We're going to use the, resources of American taxpayer. We're going to make us some money. So that's how I see it coming. It's different in the fact that they're just not ripping you off. Then it makes a profit. They're making shit tons of money, and they're going, "What are you bitching about? We're making you money."
Yeah.
They're
literally making money with Trump coin or whatever, right? They're literally making money.
Yeah, we'll see how that.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. But anyway, yeah, no, it's exactly.
Okay,
you're covering all this on the Trump Report on a weekly basis, right?
Yeah, but it takes us 4 hours. Frank's always like, he goes, well, don't you think that? I go, no, I think this. Well, yeah, it'll be an hour him trying to convince me. The barbed wire, tear gas, and water cannons. Brussels battles protesting farmers. Now, Brussels, Hungary, we're getting into Italy, France, everywhere, all across Europe. There is something going on, and we're not seeing it in the lamestream media, the media so last century here in America. What are you seeing in Japan? Are you seeing Europe going through this stuff?
I haven't seen this latest story, so I don't know, what precisely is flaring up right now, but I was covering all of the farmer protests 2022, 2023, etc. And obviously at that time, I know it was about the various net zero kind of restrictions that were coming in at that time that were basically killing farmers and killing off their industry. But I don't know. I don't know what this latest brouhaha is about.
There was one, it had 1,800 big tractors, and then they start spraying manure on the police, and they're just really being buttheads. And it's just, regulation, putting them out of business. The England, the UK, their big thing is like 20% the value of the farm when you die that, your kids, they can't just inherit it. Nope, we got to get our cut, so they got to sell it. So they're just taking away family farms. That's obviously the goal.
Well, I'm just browsing the tweet there and what have you. They're saying this is about the Mercosur South American Free Trade Deal, which, again, sounds like, what we would expect, farmers trying to be protectionist. We'll see.
Well, it's back and forth, and then what does Trump do? He's going, oh, yeah, we thought we had a deal with China. They're not buying enough soy. Well, I'm just going to give you $12 billion. We'll sure it up that way. This is so collectivist. It's so not free market. Not there's no signals in the market to make decisions. It's just stupid. Okay, Venezuela tankers. What's your thought process? Because they going into the third one, and Kristi Noem, Homeland Security, I don't know what the hell she has to do with Venezuelan tankers, but more's coming. Maduro's got to go. We're gonna, and what CIA plant they going to put behind them? Because any mechanism they have, that it's just going to be another guy just as bad. Unless we're running it. What do you think's going on with Venezuela?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the only thing that I've heard that's even somewhat relevant seems to be the oil case. But as has been pointed out, I was reading, can't remember who it was, but I was just reading a take on this the other day from someone who was pointing out, well, yeah, it can't be just about oil, because America is now the world's largest oil exporter / production nation or whatever. Anyway, energy security seems to be relatively in line. And when America is feeling pinched, they tend to cut trade deals rather than to go to war, because that tends to be the least efficient way of securing stocks. Now, sure, resources could be part of this, but no, probably more what this is about is Americans asserting dominance in South America in its sphere of influence because of what we've seen over the last couple of decades of BRICS, but I think specifically Chinese influence more and more in the region. And I think the Trump administration is not going to allow that. So again, if even if they were just being more honest about this, no, we own the entire Western Hemisphere, and just asserting themselves that way, at least it would be something. But no, they're trying to hide behind weapons of mass fentanyl or whatever, or oil or whatever. I don't think that's what it's fundamentally about.
So you don't think it's about drugs? You don't think it's about oil? You don't think what's it about?
No, I think it's about regional hegemony, regional dominance, and trying to get Chinese influence out, but only as a setup towards what I think is the World War III scenario. It's more of the kind of drawing of battle lines in various locales that will feed into the World War.
Do you think they want it or they anticipate it, or same thing?
Well, yeah, same thing, right? No, there are people who have no doubt are acting in full good faith of, America first, America dominance, we got to show the world. But I think there are people above their pay grade that are, helping to make sure this conflict gets escalated.
Why? Is it just money?
Well, okay, good question. Why? Why World War I? Why World War II? Why any major world power conflict? And
we want.
Well, here's one thing that we can put our finger on with regards to that. You'll remember Norman Dodd, who was a researcher for the Reese Committee back in the 1950s that was looking into American tax-exempt foundations and how they came to be and what they were doing. And Norman Dodd tells the story of getting into the archives of the Carnegie Endowment from its formation. I believe he said from its formation in 1908. And he was talking about going through the minutes of those board meetings from the first, their first board meetings in the first few years, in which he talked about how they were discussing in a very learned manner the way in which they were discussing how best to change the American public, the American public's perception, their mind, the social fabric of the country. And after a year of scholarly debate, they came to the conclusion that there was no greater or more effective method than war. So then the conversation turned to, okay, how do we get America embroiled in war? And of course, bada bing, bada boom, you get Federal Reserve 1913, and then by 1917, the U.S. is involved in World War I, right? And of course, that does create a major shift, one of which, for example, the Espionage Act, all of that still continues to get evoked anytime the government feels like it to shut down whistleblowers or anyone they want to shut up, is from that era. And as I pointed out recently in a panel that I was on, where that fire in a crowded theater argument comes from. It literally came from the prosecution of Eugene Debs, the socialist who was arguing against American involvement in World War I and trying to argue that people who were conscripted into World War I should refuse their orders. It was his trial. Well, yeah, we have this First Amendment thing, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, by which I mean you can't tell people not to join the military. Like, whatever. It's such nonsense. But so that's just one tiny example. But of course, I think the economic side of what happened in World War I and then World War II, just compounded all of that. So there's no surprise. War is the health of the state. The Leviathan feeds and thrives on warfare. So whatever their goal is, whatever their aim is, economic or social or otherwise, war is a great way to attain it because it absolutely liquefies everything on the table so that it's all in play.
It seems to me there's always three. It's like, Libya, North Korea, and, Iraq. Or it's,
Russia,
Ukraine,
India, China. Russia, Iran, China. Sorry.
Yeah. They always got a backup and a backup to the backup, and I mentioned that to Scott Horton one time we were doing a show. Oh, you're numerologist. Numerology? Oh, I'm not doing numerology. There's just always three. It's have you noticed that? It's never just one.
No.
It's usually more than two, and if they cure one, a third one pops up, It seems like about minimum three.
Well, this is it. I would have to look up who exactly was in the Axis, but the only ones I can think of are Germany, Italy, Japan, right? It's always three, right?
Always three. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of that, but that's a good point. I was thinking just separate conflicts. Now it's Venezuela, Ukraine, and then I guess China. What else?
Well, Israel and everyone.
Yeah, right. Israel wants another Iran strike. So I mean, it's just we're kind of. What happens when we find peace? We're like doing well. We've got a little side thing going on with Putin. We're swapping spit secretly, and it's kind of we need a Venezuela. Yeah, that's a ticket. So I'm just yeah. All right, let's get to the next one because this is more boring and bad. Carry trade win. The yen carry trades unwind about to trigger a repo market meltdown. Let's dive into the map. I went and, this yen carry thing, John Sneisen made a big deal out of this, and within a couple of days it was everywhere. And I'm going, what the hell does this even mean? The repo market is kind of, I guess it's like overnight reserves of going with the central bank. It's manipulation, it's BS, it's hiding it, it's all of a sudden Lehman Brothers goes and we're done. I mean, it's just, but I don't really understand the mechanism of what they're talking about. Do you?
Well, I think Sneisen would be the better guest for that. I mean, I only know sort of the broad idea of it, which is that interest rates have been extremely low in Japan for decades now because of the bubble pop and stagnation. In fact, there was the zero, or not just zero, negative interest rates for a while on whatever magic banking wizardry they were doing there. So you borrow in an extremely low interest environment, and you carry that over into the American markets where you can make a much, much bigger return, and you can pay off your loan that you got at zero interest or negative interest or whatever it was quite easily, right? That's the idea, and I know that that's a big part of international trade. And anytime anything happens in the markets, in the money markets, and like, why is the dollar suddenly spiking? Why is it suddenly crashing? Why is the yen going up or down? Everyone will talk about the carry trade, but yeah, I don't know the mechanics of how that works on a daily trading basis.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? Arbitrage. You can buy something lower and something higher, but then it'll cost a little fee. So the brokers make a bunch of money on nothing was created. Yeah. You create debt, and then but eventually it comes from somebody. That extra comes from some. It's you, okay? Yeah. Just saying, So in the end, it just ratchets and erodes and God, what's the best way of saying it? Oxidizes, rusts away, the underlying steel until the foundational structure, the skeleton of whatever, just crumbles. Yeah. And we be a crumbling. Here it comes, just saying. All right, so let's see. We'll go to the next one. All right, this is one I definitely know neither of us give a crap about, but Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens going at it. Turning Point USA was here in Phoenix just recently, and it was ouch quit it. And Erica Kirk comes out and wraps arms and legs, almost literally, around J.D. Vance and endorsing 28, and you got to go vote, and we're going to vote and make sure everybody votes, J.D. Vance. The Israel thing is becoming a deal. Ben Shapiro is after freaking Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and you're not allowed, and and he's not shy about it. Well, finally Candace just said, Ben Shapiro, F you and the midget horse you rode in on, and didn't make any, hesitation in saying the word. So I'm just going, there's something else going on and breaking in social media with Generation Next, the younger, certainly American young men and so on, this Nick Fuentes thing, America First deal, Marjorie Taylor Greene retiring, next month, Massey not on Netanyahu and Trump's crap list. But this Israel thing is breaking. Do you think so? Are they going to, make a comeback? Is it really going? Is it going to be part, you say, America First, and I'm not taking any Israeli PAC money, so you can vote for me, but I did, so you're not going to get elected, but they control the ballots. You see my point? I mean, all these factors come in, and it always comes down to election fraud, which is one of the reasons why they're going after Venezuela. Venezuela was, backbone of a lot of the election fraud thing, had Patrick Byrne on the show, and he's always going on about that. So what's your take on this whole Israel turning thing?
Yeah, I know it's a big deal. I know a lot of people are talking about it. I know it matters to the America First crowd. Oddly, as a Canadian in Japan, I'm not really particularly part of that crowd. So, yeah, in terms of the geopolitics of this and what it means, there's clearly a fracture that is going on, and I think it is primarily generational. I think primarily it's sort of the old boomer conservative crowd that, of course, supports Israel no matter what they do. And I think the younger generation is turning. And we see that reflected in the fortunes of someone like Ben Shapiro, who obviously rose up, 10 years ago talking, on the woke culture bashing, I don't care about your pronouns kind of debates and all of that he got famous for. But now I think people understand, oh, well, he is primarily Israel first, and he absolutely will not talk bad about the Israeli government ever at any point, and will not countenance anyone doing so. I don't even know if that's obviously part of the reason why, for example, him and Candace fell out in the first place. But I think there's a lot of other issues that Candace brings to the table. Having said that, clearly, I think if there is a countercultural force or energy behind it, I think there's a lot more momentum on the younger side of the equation, with the young people not caring whatsoever about the pieties about Israel and Israel first, and we must protect them at all costs. And that's the fracture point that's happening right now. And I think there's a lot of people who just are at an advanced enough age that I don't think they get it. And I don't think they understand the change that's taking place. I think Ben Shapiro is starting to learn about that, and we'll see where that goes. But as you say, I mean, what does this mean politically, given that it's a completely controlled, completely rigged system?
Controlled rigged. Thank you.
They control who's going to be in power and what, So we'll see. We'll see what that, because ultimately, yes, you can do all the fraud and, election rigging and ballot stuffing that you want. But at a certain point, I think there is enough of a cultural movement against what is happening that you either get some selection that is like a release steam valve, like what I think Trump was supposed to be, or you get revolution. So, and I think they probably would prefer the steam valve version to the revolution. So we'll see what kind of deals get made with whoever, a Candace Owens or a Nick Fuentes or someone like that they can essentially steer into politics in a way that will be comfortable enough for the establishment. But we'll see how that plays out.
Dave Chappelle, I just saw a short, somebody sent it to me on Telegram or something, and what it's did is he gets up and it's the end of his routine and he does a mic drop with this. After that, he just boom walks off stage. And he said, I'm corrupted. Not to listen to a damn thing I say after. I'm more worried about them coming. When I say, I stand with Israel. You do that, you don't listen to anything I say after that. Dropped the mic, walked off. And I go, ooh, that was good. That they're not going to like that. And, along with that, you're saying politically it's not going to be, it's increasingly becoming obvious that's not where real change is going to happen. It's so manipulated and controlled, and it's all being admitted to, kind of whatever, don't care. Well, that's why I think they did such a big deal about it's illegal to boycott Israel and purchasing products, or not going, or having a campaign against getting Israel money. We're going to get our gazillion dollars from Congress, but the people not buying our stuff, doing kind of boycotting, and hell no, you're not allowed to do. They passing laws that you can't criticize what Israel's doing, or buy, or purchase, or whoa, they're preempting something. This is something that they're doing for protection that they think or know they're going to need later. So this is it's coming to a head. I feel it, and you think it's not, or you feel kind of the same thing?
What do I think? It's a good question. Something is going to give one way or another. But we have seen many times in the past, the oligarchs tend to plan these things out in advance, several steps ahead. People are playing checkers, they're playing chess, that idea. So I'm assuming there's some sort of steam valve release, something that's going to be presented to the people, because that precisely is exactly what Trump was. is, I guess, or was meant to be.
Side
And I always frame this in the very first thing that I heard after the selection in 24, after selection day, Joe Rogan podcast. Literally the first seconds of the first podcast after that selection, he goes, well, it looks like voting works after all. Yeah, that's exactly the message that the people were meant to get, right? Yeah, okay. Oh, all that. They stole millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of votes in the 2020 election. It was all fraud. It was all rigged. It was all, but I guess it works now. Okay, go back to sleep, everybody. So, there's always that steam valve kind of thing.
That's one thing I commented on the if they were ever going to let, like Ron Paul in 2012 ran again, and we're like, the only reason they'll let him win is if they need to increase or create credibility for the system. Mean, that's, you're not going to be able to.
Or to tank the economy on his watch and blame it on that end of Fed stuff, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was too good at explaining it away. This is like they're going, all right, we're going to debate you. Let's debate. Let's put the, Peter Schiff up against, Goldman Sachs or Larry Summers or something. I'm like, are you guys stupid? It's just, so they don't see it. They don't, and we experienced that as activists in the 90s, early 2000s here in Arizona. The media, they would, we're going to, ask them this trick question. Would you, have you, or, now or ever learned how to spell libertarian and freedom of philosophy? Are you one of them? And you go, yeah, and you guys suck. He said it, and they had no clue that that's popular with people. It's so amazing. I don't know, who the hell are you guys hanging out with? I mean, it's just amazing. Literally, I've seen this for decades. The European Union is broke and rejects peace since they would have to return Russian money. When they took all this Russian money, they were, talking about giving it to Ukraine. Well, then it's kind of them fighting words, or they were going to do it, they're not going to do it. They, somehow they wanted to take the money away from Russia, and that's what they're going to give to Ukraine. And the Ukraine money, they're finding out how corrupt and how much is gone, and they did what. That's coming out. They've even arrested, some of his, minister of I'm ripping you off. And I don't see how they're going to get out of this with any kind of credibility. Zelensky wants to have an election. Well, we're going to have an election, but the people in eastern Ukraine aren't allowed to vote, And I'm just, it's so, what is the benefit of Trump aligning? And it looks like they're starting to separate. They're going, we're going to build condos on the beaches in Russia with Putin or something. And what do you know? What do you think's going on?
So the U.S. strategy up to this point has always been extremely understandable and transparent and perfectly predictable, because it's the exact same strategy that Britain had always used for hundreds of years through the British Empire in Europe, which is always you play the second biggest power in Europe off of everybody else, essentially. You've got to keep them separated and fighting with each other so that they're not a problem for you. And that was exactly what what Britain's approach to Russia and whoever else was playing in the Eurasian sphere for all those centuries was. And so that's what America, I think, was always doing. And they were always playing Russia off against Europe, and it's the Russian boogeyman's going to come and get you. So you got to. And it seems to have not only worked, but worked so well that now the Europeans are actually, holding on to that, embracing it. It is their core European identity now, at least for the significant parts of the EU, i.e. Germany, France, the big heavy hitters are all on board with this anti-Russia agenda. And now it seems America are they siding up with Russia? Are they trying to side up with the Russian side against the EU powers now? Is it like a different?
We've been treated very bad by the European Union. They've been very bad to us. What was interesting to me is that you had like Norway and Finland arming up. They're like, "Ooh, we so feared. We need to have and get all NATO'd and everything."
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
And who did that? I mean, are they really? Is there they just put the right guys. This is like gets back to Larkin Rose's two tiny dot thing, you know. It's like you have these little bitty two little dots, you know, running, you know, these gazillion dots out here trying to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's starting to become obvious. It's waxing and waning. And I don't give a crap how big Donald Trump's battleships are. Okay, he's going out. We're having new battleships. Why? You know, for South America people, but
for the drug boats.
Yeah, I'm. This is so ancient technology. The Chinese are doing swarm tech of we got, you know, the AI minded of we're going to kick your ass, and all you got to do is watch a futuristic video game or a movie and realize what's happening. This is just so stupid. What do you think of this battleship thing?
Well, you know, are they really that stupid? And maybe they are. But, you know, it strikes me that the historians of the future are going to write about this era in the exact same way that we write about, like, the pre-World War II era or pre-World War I era. Or, you know, those generals were so stupid, they thought that this technology, whatever the latest technology is going to be the penultimate. It's going to solve everything. And they put all their money into it. And it turns out that, you know, this new technology completely undermined it and made it useless. So whatever, big battleships and aircraft carriers presumably will be completely and utterly relegated to the dustbin of history when a genuine world power war breaks out and it turns out, you know, $1,000 drones can take down battleships or whatever it is, whatever they're going to do, right? So, you know, I can imagine there is some degree of stupidity. There is a lot of greed, obviously. And as I always suspect, there's pieces being put on the tables precisely so they can be taken down. And the long-term agenda, again, look, let's just approach this from the logical perspective. If you want the New World Order, you have to demolish the Old World Order. If the Old World Order is Pax Americana, that is based on America as the central linchpin of the whole system, then America got to go down one way or another. So you got to set it up for that fall. And, you know, it starts to extend itself in ridiculous ways. And we see what we're starting to see now, which, you know, this is not the first time you've heard this, but it's very true. Look at the Roman Empire and the way it extended itself before it went down, right? Could people in the 3rd or 4th century even imagine what was coming for the glorious Roman Empire? Maybe not, but maybe they had a sense that something was happening anyway.
There's so much tech and quality of life and so, you know, civilization and then it was gone. And they don't think that can happen again. You know, no, we'll always not go, really? Better start occupying the land and, you know, making food. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You know, the one thing, there was a scene in The Patriot with Mel Gibson to where this old guy comes in and he had, you know, a slave with him, black man that he brought with him. He goes, well, I'm too old. Putting on his corn pipe, and he goes, but I'll sign you over my slave here, and he can fight in my stead, you know. Well, if you're willing, you know, make your mark here, and, you know, and I think that's kind of it's coming down. You know, if you're not willing to fight, you got to buy us a robot, you know, or, you know, send in something or buy backpack. And I remember when the Iraq War was going on, they had no armor on their Humvees. They were, you know getting IED'd left and right and all that. And there was a practical tactical. It was a good friend of mine. He was a Republican that, you know, was doing. We did a lot of, you know, political stuff together and so on. But he had a company. He was an IT guy, but he started this thing called Practical Tactical, and it was all the best webbing and battle armor and bulletproof this and that and holsters, all the accoutrement, you know, for, you know, not dying or being better equipped than a lot of the military. Families were going to him. He was busy as hell for years during the Iraq War equipping their sons. Because the taxpayer they don't give a shit about you. And it was so bad. And they were buying and sending and arming up and defensive and keeping them warm and food. I mean, all that for their own children. Families were doing that because the government wouldn't. And then they started to just because they were looking bad, you know. It was like, yeah. And I see the same kind of thing coming. They're not going to equip them. They're just going to engage. Oh, we need more stuff. Cool. No, we need some carbon nanotube battle armor of kind of that'll be $1 billion. You know, I just worst health of the state, and you're going to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
This is here we go, and I don't know if we're going to buy it this time. Oh, I'm going to go protect my kid and go practical tackle and buy more stuff. You know, I
sincerely hope you're right.
COVID.
I sincerely hope you're right. And at any rate, we are living in a very vastly different information media complex than we were in any other Great War power time in history. So how will that figure into it? I mean, obviously there will be information operations out the yin-yang in ways we can even barely begin to imagine yet. But will there be enough remnant of free, independent thinkers like yourself and myself and people like us out there that will be able to undermine it, or will people go with the wisdom of the crowds once again and get swept up in the madness as they always do?
It'll be always what happened. How did you know? How did you not know? You know, what was, I mean, you can hopefully take the opportunity to explain critical thinking and them how in generation. That's one thing Donna is, because she's, you know, out on the land listening to, you know, tragedy porn on podcast or whatever. And, she's kind of down. I'm going, see, that's the problem. You know, it's like the eye bouncing thing. You know, I'm going, you just got to bounce from that crap. That's part of the predictive programming. They're getting you in this inevitability. Let's hurry up and have World War III so we can get it over with. Yeah. And I'm just, you know, stop. There's so much abundance coming. There's so much opportunity. We got to focus on that. I mean, I'm telling you, you know, Don, I'm going to bring you around. And here's another story along the same lines. Somalia. They're like 4 more airstrikes. There's like the bombing the living crap out of Somalia. You know, if I hadn't come across it, I wouldn't even know.
I know. Right. Yeah.
You know,
Somalia. So, what? Oh yeah, I forgot that existed. Yeah.
Yeah. So the U.S. Africa Command, which was one of the latest ones, I think that was only like a decade ago or something. They even created an Africa Command for the U.S. military because we got a bunch of U.S. military all over Africa, and so does every other country, but they don't talk about it. You know, Africa is starting to do this anti-colonial power, get the hell off our land, homeboy, you know, so we'll see how that goes. Syria, same crap. U.S. hits more than 50 ISIS targets in Syria because 2 soldiers and a translator got killed because of something, and blah, blah, blah. We're in Syria? I thought we were out of Syria. We're in Syria. We're not in Syria. What do you know about Syria, Somalia? It's all the same stuff.
Well, anyway, all I know is that Jelani's the golden boy, but ISIS is still there. We'll have to bomb him. You know, there's a lot going on there, but essentially, mission accomplished.
ISIS, wasn't he?
Sorry?
The leader in Syria was ISIS.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, but don't think about that. They've been officially desanctioned now, so I guess they're the good guys, even as they are the bad guys, but they put on a different cloak or something. I don't know, whatever.
They're trying to get us in the war and something, and amongst this Syria thing, you know, they're being all buddy with the new guy. It's so complicated. I don't even trust anything anyway. But in amongst all this, here comes Israel and says, we need to go after Iran again.
Yeah.
Why? And so, of course, Iran's going to, you know, do testing or do whatever the hell they're going to do and rattle sabers and so on. Why? What do you think's going on there? And they're not stopping in Gaza either. You know, and they just put in a bunch of more settlements. Israel does whatever the hell they want. It doesn't matter what they say.
Yeah. Well, apparently so. That's the way it's operated for a long time. And they're going to continue doing that until they can't. And what's going to stop them? Certainly not 99.9% of the controlled U.S. Congress, right?
It's same old. That's one reason why I bring this up. You go over into the Ann Archives and you go down to the newsletter list, the email dispatches that we send out, you know, once or twice a day. When you go into those, here, let me click on it. When you go into those, it goes back a decade. I think we started doing this, I don't know, a long time ago. It goes down and down and down, like 2013, 2009, 07. I just go back 10 years. So what is today? 12/23. I'll go to 12/23 and 24 and just look at one of the headlines, and I'm telling you, you'll see it's the same. It always is the same. 12/23/24. Let's just see what's up. Okay. How America heat their home. Public schools using multi-million-dollar fees to stop parental FOIA requests. Okay, they're keeping parents away from school stuff.
A simple way Trump can end the Ukraine and Israel wars. Okay.
Right. Trump's BRICS ultimatum, tracking it goes on and on and on. It's the same stuff. Oftentimes the same people. It's just...
The FBI deserves Kash Patel.
Whatever that means today. January 6th prisoners.
You could run the same headline today. It would just have a very different meaning.
They're all the same. It's just Doug Casey on Syria's collapse and global geopolitical shifts. 11 signs that the slow motion collapse of the U.S. economy is far more advanced. Justice has departed America. Will justice return? I mean, I do a lot of times. I just go back 10 years. Somebody will be going. I'm going. You know what? Just go back 10 years. It's the same shit. There's no difference. So let's look at some more of the same crap. There's 3 stories on this that kind of overlapped. Rising male infertility, a catastrophe waiting to happen. You go, okay, well, why did that happen? And then you have this one. Former Pfizer vice president, COVID shots were designed to cause injury and reduce fertility. Well, shocking, I'm so surprised. So where do you think this is going as Trump is being all buddies with Pfizer now? And they're wanting the CDC go, yeah, we're black labeling this mRNA for infants kind of stuff. Then they refuse to market, and they're not going to, yada, 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 yada. So what do you say you do here? I mean, what do you think?
Business as usual in every sense, right? It is interesting to watch what's happening internally with the FDA and the review of the childhood vaccination schedule that is apparently underway. We'll see what comes of it. Let's not hold our breaths and wait for happiness and sunshine and rainbows to come for that. But there is a change in the narrative that's taking place around that. But at the exact same time, Trump is all on board and full steam ahead with DNA, mRNA vaccines. Ellison was talking about it from, I think, day 2 of the Trump administration, sitting there in the Oval Office talking about Project Stargate and how wonderful these personalized mRNA vaccines are going to be. Bill Gates was the guest of honor in the Trump White House recently, talking about how him and Trump both, think the mRNA DNA vaccine moonshot is a wonderful thing and how it's going to transform the world. So, it certainly doesn't look like this is going to be the end of the Pfizer business model.
And we got, some of the other stuff that's coming in behind on the Epstein thing. So here we got Mike Ben's been doing a lot of good work. I guess I enjoy his stuff. He's looking at, more than just, pictures with little girls, but it's like a smokescreen for other stuff. So what does it say? This is it. The key to Epstein, Bear Stearns put him on BCCI trades. Well, you can explain BCCI here in a minute. In 1979, when it made millions helping the CIA, Brits, Saudis, and Israelis disguise covert cash by cleaning $13 billion with BCCI, a CIA money laundering bank. Epstein simply developed that clientele and career niche. The rest is history. This is what's really, kind of behind a lot of this stuff, and to keep it under control and wraps. So explain BCCI.
I would if I could. All I know is it's the Banks for Crooks and Criminals International,
Boom,
right?
it.
Yeah. But as that summary says, I know it's a CIA. It was a CIA money laundering bank, and it was tied into the intel of all the connected CIA cronies like the Brits and the Saudis and the Israelis, etc. But I never did the deep dive into the ins and outs of that bank and how it was operating. But that Epstein was involved in the BCCI trades for Bear Stearns in the 70s. It wouldn't surprise me, certainly. Yeah.
Well, where I came, aware of it was the Clinton, Mena, Arkansas kind of thing. It started coming up that there's this bank that, everything was going through. And it's just, hey, it's Bill. Open me up another account. I need to put, some zillions into what. Okay, it's over here. Here's your number. drop by the ATM. It's all good. It's just so open, and that was one thing that I realized back in the early '90s when I was doing a lot of activism. These guys were proud of it, and they go, "This is how we're doing." I go, "You're like campaigning or bragging or marketing or trying to recruit me what the crap?" They were proud of how infiltrated they were into the corruption. This is how corrupt I am. Oh no, I'm more corrupt than you are. I got more contact. And I'm sitting there, what the crap? And I was a young guy, and they're doing, what are you, a Boy Scout? I kept getting called Boy Scout all the time. And you guys are evil. I mean, at the point I just really started going back to church, having one of our kids, raised in a Christian environment because of this crap, by the way. And it was everything that I was reading and learning and the stories of the Bible it was all appropriate timing for outing what these guys were. They were bad, doing bad stuff and knowing it was bad. They were evil. And it's just amped up more. And the confidence that I have of what's coming is just that this just doesn't continue. They go, crime doesn't pay. How the hell it doesn't? I mean, they do it. But eventually, people realize. And that is where the one story comes up. The doomers versus the boomers. You have the people but they can't really sell when they got their 3% interest rates from back when. They can't buy something else. They want to downsize. They're retiring. They got a big glut. That's one of the demographics we studied like a decade ago, is that about now, all these elderly people, and there's not a birth rate coming in, you're going to have a McMansion from some retiree that died or did whatever to choose from. And I see it. It is just, and they're overbuilding, but the prices and the interest rates, there's manipulation on so many levels that is competing manipulation with each other. This has to go up, this has to go down. This way we want this high and this low. We want. But some fundamentals, and certainly this America First, Generation Next, young, oh my God, I'm a white boy, and wants to not be, beaten into submission every time I go out in public or at a school or something, is going to manifest itself in some way. Before you go, I wanted us to do this, and you kind of pontificate on that, because it's coming in this election cycle. And I do election cycles because it's just time marks, whatever. But it gets discussed. So 26, certainly the first half, is going to manifest itself in what way do you think?
Well, in a way, okay, we should save this for the 2026 talk we're going to have in a couple weeks.
It teases a little bit.
Because I think the demographic question, the overall demographic question of the entire global population, in some ways makes all of our little calculations about this or that thing, or our concentration on this or that momentary passing story in the newswire is almost irrelevant, because the absolute tidal change that's going to take place in the next decade or two as the baby boomer generation starts to die out, and there's going to be a huge gaping hole in the global population that will definitely change things in fundamentally drastic ways that our children will not recognize the world that we grew up in. As usual, I suppose, but this is on, I think, a bigger level than that. Well,
they were trying to do it with, this environmental, whatever, climate, we're all going to die thing, and you just did a show on the COP 30 flop of whatever. Highlight that for us, tell people why they should go watch it.
Yeah, I hope people will check it out. If they don't know, the COP is the annual climate summit the UN holds, where they, jet in on their private jets to lecture us peons that we're going to have to, eat toilet paper and live off of bugs and rainwater for the rest of our lives to atone for our climate sins. Back in 2015, they declared they saved the world with the Paris Agreement, but it turns out nobody's following the Paris Agreement because it's a death sentence. It is a suicide pledge, essentially, for all economies. And every time someone tries to implement something, people go crazy. Well, that was what the Yellow Vest movement in France was about originally. It was they were raising gasoline taxes and prices because of the carbon taxes that were coming in as a result of the Paris Agreement, etc. So COP30 was a complete disaster. It literally burnt down. They literally had to close the conference for half a day, I think, as one of the tents caught on fire, which was just a good metaphor for what was going on there. A lot of hot air, a lot of bloviating, but they didn't even come out with any significant statement this year. The climate hysteria is not playing as well as it used to, obviously, in this era, and I think that's a significant shift in the narrative that's taking place. It doesn't mean they're over, they're done. Don't worry, go home, guys. It's all done. No, it just means they're going to regroup and try it in a different way. But having said that, Ernie, I'm very disappointed we didn't really get to the heart of the spirit of Christmas at all in this conversation. So I'm going to go do that over here.
Yes, you should. Absolutely. I just wanted to say, I interviewed Alex Newman. He went down there, and one of the things here in the Southwest, you notice that you go to, I don't know, a lot of Hispanic restrooms. I know, like at Hispanic areas, convenience stores or whatever. They don't flush toilet paper. You have, Hershey's stained toilet paper in a trash can by the toilet. Do you know why?
I'm assuming their plumbing can't handle it. I don't know.
Exactly. I didn't know. I'm like, what the hell is this a cultural? How is this even a thing? Well, at COP down there, they got their brand new, let's mow down the rainforest and build this thing, whatever. They have, they come in on their jet and they got to put their toilet paper in trash cans instead of flushing it because where I'm going, man, disaster. And then fires and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was, that's a good interview, as well. But, I'm getting Christmased up. We have a lot of family coming in. They're going to be coming out here to the land, and we're going to have us some fun. And it's going to be, I think we'll be okay.
Yep.
But I go to my kids and I'm explaining to them, get out of paper, precious metals. A lot of the kids are giving the grandkids their children like I did them. Bars. Like they thought they were getting an iPod and it was a 10-ounce bar of silver and they're bitching, but they still have that silver. I go, who's your buddy now? Okay? Yeah. I want to hear your whining.
It's like in Scrooged when he gives them that prime cut of roast beef or ribeye steak or whatever. You'll appreciate it. The market value of this. It's so amazing.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming on and doing this end of year with me because I wanted to make sure we kind of set the base for what predictions we're going to be doing next month.
Yep.
Because it's there's a lot of this stuff is going to carry on, but it's the same thing. Yep. Somalia, Venezuela, Ukraine, Syria. Yep. War. Then we got the economics, we got the silver, we got the tech, we got the corruption, and then I think it's going to continue, is what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. So we're going to be talking about it, but in the meantime, occupy the land, enjoy your Christmas, and, get all tight with your family because you're going to need it. Just saying.
Yep. You too. Merry Christmas, and Merry Christmas to all the people out there. Let's enjoy a nice and warm and cozy break, and we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Cool. Peace.
Take care.
Merry Christmas.
Yep. Merry Christmas.